Hey guys, what's up? Today I want to show you the longest RPGs I've ever played. Not the longest RPGs ever made, no, just the ones that I have ever finished. Now my numbers are gonna be according to my save files on my memory cards, on the consoles themselves, and also on the main story alone. If I did some side content on a certain game or something like that, I will let you know in the video itself. Alright, let's begin! Number 10. Tears to Tera 2. This hidden gem on the PlayStation 3 is often categorized as a visual novel. It isn't one, but it's true you'll be reading considerable amounts of dialogue between missions. It's a grid-based strategy RPG and an indirect sequel to a game that stayed in Japan, unfortunately. No, you don't need to play that one at all to understand this one, but you'll have to prepare for a long journey with tons of story. According to my save file, I beat this game in 48 hours and 18 minutes, grinding included. This game goes hard after a while, but there's also an easy mode you can try, although near the end the final maps can be somewhat troublesome even on that mode. So the harder the difficulty, the longer it'll take you to beat it. You can change the difficulty at any given time. I played on normal for the most part, then went down to easy for the final maps just to avoid all the grinding, and I still did nearly 50 hours, no side quests. Yep, one of the longest RPGs I've ever played. Number 9. Persona 3. The very first time I beat this game, my timer marked 51 hours and 12 minutes on a clear game save data. This was on the original version on the PlayStation 2 a long ass time ago. I remember I did do some side content here, like bonding with certain characters when I didn't really need to. The problem with measuring the time for Persona games is that you often can't tell the difference between what's a side quest and what's part of the main story, since you're giving a lot of free time to do some life simulation or to explore the main dungeon. So the final playtime will always vary a lot between one player and the other. Since this file of mine is old, I can't remember how many hours of side content I did, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't like 10 hours or something like that. Plus, there's the FES version, which is slightly longer, but unfortunately I couldn't find my save file on that one. My guess is I may have done only a couple of hours more, and I'm not counting the answer, which is the sequel/epilogue included, where my file says I did 25 hours. Anyway, Vanilla Persona 3 is my number 9 with a little bit over 50 hours of playtime. Number 8. Octopath Traveler. According to my save file, I did almost 1 hour more than in Persona 3. My timer marks 52 hours and 2 seconds. Yeah. I completed all 8 character stories until I finally got to the final boss of the main character I chose, which was Primrose. Credits rolled and I was satisfied. Anything else beyond that point is just post-game content, including the alleged true final boss. I watched a video on it and story-wise, it literally feels like just another side quest, as in the final side quest. Hell, even the game shows it on the side content stuff. So in conclusion, it took me 52 hours to complete the game, all characters and all their chapters, including many hours of grinding. Yeah, this is a relentless grindfest alright, and I can guarantee at least 20% of my playtime was just that, leveling up. No difficulty modes are there, so everybody's stuck with the game's own level of challenge, which is hard in my opinion. Do you have to do every single character's chapters other than your own to beat the game? No, but then what was 20% of grinding for me will definitely have turned into 60 or 70% for you. So might as well use the same amount of time to do the other characters, wouldn't you agree? Number 7. The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 4. Here's the latest RPG I've ever finished, literally from last weekend. I've already declared my love for it and how I find it as a perfect conclusion for the Cold Steel arc, so I'll move on to the timer. My save file marks 61 hours and 49 minutes total. However, I'm pretty sure there's around 10 hours of side content I did, at the very least. That's right, I know I rarely do side quests in JRPGs, but I made an exception for this one. Just goes on to prove how much I enjoyed it, huh? So maybe, in reality, it must have taken me between 50 and 52 hours to complete just the main story? I'd say that's a close number, but it isn't exactly accurate. Maybe one day I'll beat it again, this time focusing on the main story alone, just to make a comparison. Perhaps that day I'll have an exact number, but I think I can safely assume it will take you between 45 and 55 hours to complete if you do just that. Number 6. Final Fantasy XII. Keep in mind I'm talking about the original PS2 version, not the remasters. Those have a more balanced gameplay and include difficulty modes. With the vanilla one, there's nothing of the sort. Gameplay is unbalanced and there are difficulty spikes everywhere, so it's a friggin' grindfest. I did 53 hours and I can guarantee 30% of that went to going around areas back and forth, waiting for enemies to respawn just to level up. And yes, you guessed it, it takes forever to gain one single level here. Still, considering this game is kinda open worldish, it's no surprise it's quite a long adventure. Obviously I skipped most of the side content and barely did anything optional. Had I been better at playing this game, perhaps my endless hours of grinding would have been cut, but I can guarantee no matter how good you can be at this PS2 version, main story will still take you, at the very least, between 45 and 50 hours, and that's a stretch. Number 5. Project Crosszone. Such an underrated game, and it's a crossover exclusive to the 3DS of many different franchises, including some JRPGs like the Dot Hack games, Tales of Vesperia, Valkyria Chronicles 3, Shining Force EXA, and even Resonance of Fate. It's a strategy RPG but with a battle system that's mostly based on combos. There are absolutely zero side quests in this game. It's map after map with several scenes in between. So the time I'm about to give you is 100% focused on its main story, because that's all there is to it in this awesome RPG. I did 54 hours with 42 minutes the very first time I beat it. I finished this game 3 times so far, and I obviously did less every time because I knew what I was supposed to do, which enemies to kill first, what characters to use where, and so on. The reason why this game is so long might not only be because of its huge cast of characters, but also because the maps are way too long. Some of them can take up to 2 hours to complete. I personally loved it, but many people didn't, which is why the second game is shorter to a certain extent. Number 4. The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3. Now, for this one, I'm pretty sure I didn't do as much side content as in the 4th game. I think most of what I did was chase after all the optional bosses, also known as the monster extermination requests. 90% of the other side quests, I still remember I skipped them. So my timer for this one sums up a total of 62 hours and 25 minutes. Perhaps with a little grinding involved, take out, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours total max of side content, leaving me with 57 or 58 hours. That's what I assume will take you to beat the game if you focus only on the main story. Depending on the difficulty, it might be less or more. Cause let's face it, we all play differently, being good at certain RPGs and bad at others. And that obviously affects the amount of time it'll take us to beat them. So in the end, 62 hours was my time with Trails of Cold Steel 3, but the main story alone must have taken me a little bit less than 60. In other words, it's just about as long as the 4th game, but definitely longer than the first 2 games in the series. Number 3, Persona 4. Again, I'm giving you the number based on the original PS2 version. I gotta say first though that I didn't beat this game until very recently, just for the sake of this video. I had abandoned it a long time ago because I didn't defeat the true final boss. I put the game back on my old PS2 a few days ago and committed myself to beat the game. All I needed was a bunch of healing items to stand a chance against it. Can you believe that? Anyway, my file says I did 64 hours total. Just like with Persona 3, there's no way to have an accurate time on how long it really took me to beat just the main story. Since I like the characters and story way more in Persona 3 than in 4, I can safely assume I didn't do a lot of side content. What I can guarantee is at least a few hours of just grinding before the true final boss. So I'm guessing if you aim for the normal ending, it should take you between 50 and 55 hours to complete, and I think I'm stretching. That doesn't change the fact, however, that it's still a long-ass game, and I believe the golden version on the Vita and PC might be even longer. Number 2, Persona 5. This one needs no introduction or explanation whatsoever. It's not even a surprise it made it so high on the list. Everybody knows it's currently one of the longest RPGs ever created, surpassing even some of the so-called open world RPGs out there. Nonetheless, I still did 84 hours and 16 minutes according to my save file. Yep, that's quite a difference between this game and the previous one. Though I have to confess that this is yet another case where I love the game so much, I did a good chunk of optional stuff. I'd say around 10 hours, maybe a little bit more, which brings my total amount of playtime on the main story approximately between 72 and 74 hours, and I can guarantee that's at the very least what it will take most gamers out there to complete, focusing on the main story alone. Maybe less if you want to rush it a little. Anyway, this is actually the longest time I've ever spent on one playthrough alone in my life. But that's because I did side stuff. However, it's not the longest RPG I've ever finished. Number 1, Namco Cross Capcom. This Japan-only game on the PS2, fan-translated but also poorly translated, although understandable, is the longest RPG I've ever finished. Considering there's zero side content involved, of course it beats Persona 5, regardless of what my save file says. It predates Project Crosszone, also developed by Monolith Soft. A gazillion characters from different series, some including Xenosaga, Tales of Destiny, and the Mega Man Legends. Add a million conversations between them all and their enemies. Add extremely long maps, some of them over 2 hours long to beat. Like I said, no side quests at all. So that means my 75 hours with 47 minutes were main story alone. Yep, no bonding or life simulating here like in Persona, no grinding cause there aren't any optional maps, nope, nada. Almost 76 hours of pure main quest. Yeah, I can see why back then that would have turned off a lot of Western gamers, especially considering its highly but addictive, in my opinion, repetitive nature. So maybe that's one of the many reasons this RPG wasn't localized? Regardless, I loved it to death, and those were 76 hours very well spent. I can't believe I have, according to my memory card, 58 hours in this game. It's a great game, I loved it, But you guys know me, I'm not the biggest Dragon Quest fan, and probably 20 out of those 58 hours are grinding. You know, these games are big grind fests. I can't believe it, but I never finished this game. 58 hours and I never finished it. I got stuck in the final dungeon and never went back to it, maybe someday. And also, here's a little controversy for you. Dragon Quest XI, the main story alone I did 41 hours, so that wasn't enough to merit its own place in the video. But I also have 56 hours into it, but I'm including those extra hours, those extra 15 hours on the post-game content. And since I never beat the true final boss in this game, it doesn't really count. I couldn't include in this video. You get the idea. 2 Dragon Quest games, in my opinion, the 2 best Dragon Quest games ever made. Anyway, I digress. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!